story recapped here. Today I'm gonna explain a horror and sci-fi show called Love, Death, and Robots Swarm. Spoilers ahead, watch out and take care. Scientist Dr. Afriel seeks to study a group of ancient species called swarms. To do this, he employs an alien vessel to take him to a distant star system where the swarm's hive is. As they reach the destination, his alien companions note that they'll miss their conversations with him as they proceed with the rest of their voyage without him. Afriel shares a sentiment and notes that the information they've given him is extremely valuable. The alien shares that they like to do business with humans as they're young, eager, and flexible. The alien captain then reminds Afriel that they will return for him in 600 days, just as their transit contract declares. With this, Afriel bows as a sign of his gratitude. Afriel uses a pod from the ship to enter a cave. Upon entering, a large jellyfish-like alien latches itself onto the entrance as if protecting it. Inside, another alien opens a passage, allowing two insectoid creatures to greet him. Dr. Galina Murney then floats toward him and welcomes him. She is glad to see another human after so long, though she tells him to call her by her first name, Galina. As they speak, one of the creatures suddenly bites Afriel's leg. However, Galina explains that it will just convey his pheromones to the queen. This is so that he won't be mistaken as an invader and get killed. As the two head deeper into the cave, Afriel expresses how he followed Galina's study of the swarm with much interest. He's impressed that she learned to communicate with the creatures, though Galina corrects him that there are no swarm castes that use language, but several symbiote species do. One of them is the springtail, the creature that bit Afriel's leg earlier. Galina believes that these creatures were once a spacefaring race who found the swarm and became one with it. However, they are no more than just mere parasitic savages now. Galina shows Afriel around, and as he looks at every corner, he finds different species of aliens that live in unity, and this amazes him. Galina knows that she has identified 15 unique symbiotic aliens living with the vast caste native to the swarm. She then leads Afriel toward the cave's ground, where she further explains that the hive's main food source is various strains of nutrient-rich fungi. Since the basic biochemistry of humans and these creatures are similar, the food is edible. To secrete food, Galina demonstrates a pattern of reflex tapping on one of the insectoid creatures. This prompts the creature to release a blue and slimy substance that has been fermented in its gut. She adds that fermentation makes the food taste better, but as soon as Afriel tastes it, he can barely hide the look of disgust on his face. Suddenly, they hear a loud bellowing from above. Afriel marvels as the massive creature called the Tunneler floats above them. Galina goes towards it as it can take them deeper into the nest. Afriel immediately follows her lead and tries his best to hold on to the Tunneler while it travels. As they go further, Galina and Afriel encounter different alien creatures. The creatures come in different shapes and sizes, but most of them resemble crabs and scorpions. They arrive at the nest, and Afriel is amazed to see the enormous queen. Many of the creatures surround it, and although there are plenty of them, they remain intact and organized. As they watch creatures diligently harvest eggs, Galina explains that whatever caste of worker is needed, the queen can create it. Amazed by its idea, she adds that the entire nest is a wonder of genetic automation. Afriel observes the queen with awe, but he suddenly hears a tapping noise from above. They find a creature from the warrior caste, so Galina warns that they're incredibly deadly, but they only attack if something threatens the queen or her eggs. After leaving the nest, Galina finally asks Afriel what he seeks in this place. With much confidence, he explains that the swarm is a near-perfect organic system, so it can be a resource that can bring order to the chaos of human expansion. He encourages harnessing the swarm's power. Hearing this, Galina immediately opposes his plan, because in simple terms, he aims to exploit the swarm. She floats up, showcasing the vast biosystem of the cavern and how perfect it is. She explains that the nest has been there for millions of years, while humans will be quickly forgotten. Afriel argues that even though he wouldn't live long enough to see their species triumph, he holds on to the idea that it'll happen one day. Galina calls this arrogance. With much passion, she adds that the creatures in the swarm are innocent, and they shouldn't be pawns in a struggle for power on another planet. However, Afriel argues that he only needs one genetic mutation from one egg to create a new queen and build a new nest. Still, Galina explains that the creatures would be useless without the actual nest's pheromones to control them. To prove her wrong, Afriel shows her an artificial vein, which glows red in his leg and allowed him to slip past the investor quarantine. He explains that it has selected swarms synthesized pheromones based on Galina's samples. He enthuses that the synthesized pheromones would allow them to control millions of workers, but this angers Galina as she sees this as building a slave race. Afriel remains persistent since the creatures aren't sentient and are merely organic machines. This means that they don't have a mind of their own, and it doesn't matter if they work for the humans or the swarm. Defeated, Galina agrees, but under the condition that the nest will remain safe. After this, Afriel slits his leg open and takes out the artificial vein. Galina wants to do a series of trials first, so he covers his hands with the pheromones inside the artificial vein and tests them on some creatures. He first tests the most basic pheromonal commands that trigger a simple grouping stimulus, but Galina notes that it can only work effectively if the pheromones are combined in a chemical program. One day, after a series of planned tests, they successfully command one worker to retrieve a fertilized egg for them, Elated by this achievement, Galena pulls Afriel to a kiss, which begins their intimacy. Galena realizes that humans aren't so different from the creatures in the swarm. They are all adrift on chemical tides and submerged in the warm ebb of flow and life. A few days later, a springtail alerts Afriel that the queen is no longer giving the creatures food. This sounds alarming to Afriel, so he tasks his little ally to take him to her. Immediately, he passes through narrow openings in a hurry. On their way, however, a warrior alien suddenly attacks the springtail. Afriel dodges in time as another warrior attempts to capture him. The warriors begin to rip the springtails apart while Afriel lands on the rocks. He spots more warriors coming from all corners, so he quickly flees. The warriors chase after him, so Afriel squeezes into a narrow passage which the warriors don't fit in. However, Afriel hits a few rocks as he continues forward, getting himself injured. Still, he rushes forward as the warriors quickly catch up with him. Afriel bursts into another passage, but the warriors break through to follow. Suddenly, another warrior appears behind him, so Afriel swings and kicks it against the rock. The warrior screeches and then pins him against the wall, slicing at him with its pincers. Afriel grabs a sharp rock from a corner and forcefully stabs the warrior to death. However, more warriors are waiting to lunge at him. Afriel remains determined and challenges the aliens, so they attack simultaneously and knock him out. A few moments later, the warriors bring Afriel to the queen. Soon, he wakes up to Galena's moans, only to find Galena's body in the queen's mouth. He calls out to her, but she lifts her head and tells him to address her as the Swarm. To his horror, the queen has her tendrils deep in Galena's brain, using Galena as her mouthpiece. The image is too much for Afriel to bear that he suddenly vomits out of disgust. Using Galena's voice, she explains that she is one of the Swarm's casts with a specialty of intelligence. Realizing what brought on these events, Afriel tries to defend that they never meant to harm them but only study them. However, the queen knows they intended to breed them to use them. She adds that when Afriel started his crude experiments, certain genetic protocols were triggered that gave birth to her and her intelligence. Although she is only a few weeks old, she already has millions of years of racial memory. Afriel acknowledges her intelligence and tries to arrive at a diplomatic solution, but the queen cuts him off. She notes that she's only a tool that the Swarm has used to stop many threats in the past. Through Galena's memories, she has studied the human race. She comments that humans are especially vigorous that may compete with them within a few centuries. Afriel defiantly notes that the humans will come for them soon, but this doesn't threaten her. Instead, she's confident that the human race will be gone long before the Swarm. Afriel perceives this as a threat, and as he attempts to talk back, the queen simply chokes him with her tentacles. She notes that the human race is likely to destroy itself since intelligence is not a winning survival trait. To prove her point, she turns his attention to the scavenger eating his vomit. This creature's ancestors once made the galaxy tremble, but the Swarm bred smarter and tougher versions of its race to fight them. She claims that this is an excellent strategy, and he and Galena are the perfect breeding pair to bring her vision to life. Afriel declares that he'd rather kill himself than betray his race. Undeterred, the queen shares that she can simply clone him and raise the children herself. She then offers him to choose between remaining an intelligent being or becoming a mindless puppet just like Galena. Seeing Galena struggle with tendrils in her brain, Afriel looks away. As he reconsiders his options, the queen reiterates her offer. Finally, Afriel arrogantly accepts her challenge to retain his mind. Still, he's confident that humans will not become parasites since they're different, and the queen patronizes his trust in humanity. As she towers over the human, the queen adds that she's glad that she doesn't have to absorb him, since she would have missed their conversations.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this. Turn on notifications. And leave a like, it really helps the channel out. Thank you for watching.